things.
Yeah. By the sound of the music, it's time.
I don't hear any of the music.
I also don't hear the
Are
music.
you not hearing it?
Not at all.
In the frig? I don't know why that's happening. I wonder
strange.
if it could. No. I don't know what it is. But it's playing for me, and it's quite delightful.
Doom, 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 doom.
Yeah, it's almost like you can hear it. Well, you know what? We don't need music where we're going. Because it's time to explore rules variants with your pals, Alex and Steve. Hi, guys.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
It is very good to see you. And here I am still kind of vamping to the sound of the music when in actuality there's no music playing. It's just so weird. Hey, look in the chat. We've got Devious Hearts is here. Boy, I've got some stuff to say about Devious Hearts. Better buckle up. Claude's here too. Hey, Claude, good to see you. The Zatran is here.
The Zatran.
And, the Zatran Mastermind Dapook says, good afternoon, Superfam. Jonathan Jackson says, happy Moomamo. Jonathan Jackson reminds me of, maybe the son of J. Jonah Jameson.
All those J's.
Jonathan Jackson Jameson Jr.
Jonathan Jackson Jameson the third.
The third Esquire. I like it. What's Apook saying? Zathras? I don't know what that means. I think
he's responding to the Zatran, who is not Zathras, but the Zatran.
Right. Yes.
I want to know if Zatran is singular or plural, like Jedi.
That's true. Or both.
Or both.
Yeah.
Like Moose.
Right. Indeed. Well, welcome everybody. You've picked a fine show to join. And, Claude's also a third?
Claude the third.
I did not know
Claude.
that.
He's Claude. I like it. Playing with variant rules, this is a discussion, an idea. Hey, Squire. I don't know what you're inferring when you say, wow, I'm late today. Cheryl, good to see you.
I think it was pretty clear, Troy.
Yeah. I think, I mean, good. You're with us. We're always on time, every time.
He did not cast obfuscating aspersions, just aspersions.
It's just specious aspersions. Listen, this conversation, this whole rigmarole was a suggestion by Dominic.
Indeed.
There he is now. Dominic says, heyo. Dominic, for your troubles, you get your own hero point, a real life hero point that you can do several things with. One of them I know is, let's say you're going to be late somewhere. You can rewrite that scene and you're early and they're late. What else can we do with that? You can win an argument. You can go back and have that rebuttal that you think, oh, if I only would have said.
Perfect comeback.
The perfect comeback, yeah. All kinds of good stuff, courtesy.
We should have an advantage called perfect comeback. I don't know what it would do, but I think it would be a great advantage.
If only there was somebody who could insert that into the game.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right.
We'll have to write a letter or something.
Yeah, maybe it can be a variant rule set, because that's what we're talking about today. And so thank you, Dominic, for that suggestion. We are going to run with it. Now, I showed you, Dominic kind of explained a little bit about what it was that his intentions were. And we're going to expand a little bit on that topic and talk a little bit more about sort of utilizing variant rules and how maybe you create your own and how to introduce them and test them and all that kind of good stuff. But Alex, where would you like to start?
Yeah, and I do think it is a great time to also talk about house rules if we want to work some of that in, because that also falls under the variant list.
Yep, indeed.
Hey, you know what, Alex? Before you start, I forgot. There has been a rumor going around, and I just want to...
Whatever it is, it's probably true. Sorry.
Well, it is true. It is true, I'm afraid. And that is, the Atomic Think Tank is alive.
Yes, indeed.
And it is basically, imagine if you were a community of people, and you wanted to hang out and discuss the thing you loved. And maybe it was Mutants Masterminds. Maybe it was Fantasy Age. Maybe it was Modern Age. Maybe it was Cthulhu Awakens. Maybe it was all of the above. You can do so now in this space. It's called the Atomic Think Tank. And now we're not, it's a soft launch. We're doing, as they say, building the airplane as we're flying it. So it's a little precarious, but it's coming together quite nicely. I did want to do a shout out to Devious Hearts. We were, as we're putting kind of stuff together, Devious Hearts just popped out of nowhere with this fantastic write-up, and then another, and then another, and then another, and then another, and another, and continues to share really great everything from how to play Mutants and Masterminds to managing your house rules, and I mean it's just really top shelf stuff. And we're populating that into the community section of the Atomic Think Tank. Now, let's say you want to be a part. Yeah, it's really great. Thanks. So Devious has now become a member of the kind of our group of content creators within the space. That you'll see a moderator tag when you get the opportunity to join. Now, not every single human being is involved in the. Has joined, and this is a soft launch, and so we're adding people gradually over time. If you are just thinking, I really need to be a part of that, I need to be there, send a note to me, ping somebody. If you are in the Atomic Think Tank and you know who you are, feel free to extend an invite to a friend, but keep them tight. We don't want to go crazy. We don't, we want to just kind of slowly add people to the mix and continue to grow the Atomic Think Tank. I really, really like it quite a bit. It's great, a bit of software doing on Mighty Networks. Very, very impressed with the way that things are laid out. It's very simple, yet also complex. So super, super good stuff. And with that, there are a couple questions that I want to make sure we Devious Heart says, perfect comeback. Spend a hero point on any interaction skill to turn the effect back on the attacker.
I mean, that sounds like the rule to me.
Right? That works.
Brilliant. Yeah. Let's see. There's a question on the RPG SE. RPG SE, Dugan? What is that? What is the SE? About whether a partial area attack like the rocket launcher can crit. I pointed out that area attacks don't roll, so the area part couldn't crit.
That is entirely correct.
Yes. Yep.
But they want some sort of direct quote saying, thou shalt not. Anyone know of one? They claim that it just says that an area attack doesn't have to roll.
That would be looking through the book to double check on that. I do not have a reference off the top of my head.
Clip the last 60 seconds and send it to them.
But
tell them Steve said so.
That is the correct interpretation of the rule. Attacks like area and perception that don't have attack checks cannot, by definition, critically hit.
Oh, awesome. Oh, Claude says, ooh, I know an M&M content creator who's not on there, but should be. I'll reach out. Fantastic.
Please do.
Yeah,
please do. Definitely do. And then, Stack Exchange. Merciful heavens. This is another way for humans to share information with each other.
Because we need another one of those.
We certainly do. Well, I'll look into the Stack Exchange, begrudgingly. But yes, thank you, Sean. And clip that little bit of audio and tell them this is what you get. And they should be listening to the show anyway. Okay, so back to the topic at hand. Variant rules.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're covering all sorts of things. Basically, these are various ways to cover things in the rules that don't come up super often or are optional dials for game masters looking to splash a specific kind of flavor into the games they're running. Things like mass combat, things like, do you want money to matter in your game? Do you want, if your game is particularly martial arts oriented, do you want to have different fighting styles that actually mean something other than just being a description for the characters? And or if you want like reputation and things like that, lots of fun stuff like that.
Indeed. I think the first thing to talk about is why variance at all. And in spite of the comprehensive nature of Mutants and Masterminds as a game system, no game system covers it all, and no game system fits everyone's play style or needs. And some, as we'll talk about with house rules and the like, some folks prefer to do things a little differently. Some folks find that certain rules don't suit them, and it's nice to have options.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice to have options outside of you can't do this, or
Right.
the system doesn't talk about this. So what do we do for it? Yeah, and one of the things that I really like about Mutants and Masterminds is that it is so customizable for any real sort of RPG that you want to run. You have the option to do a bunch of different things. It's just figuring out what you want to add to your story and what thematically works for your story that wouldn't show up in every single M&M game.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I'm curious about as well is, so when Dominic had brought this up, that we have shared variant rules in the past, like through the Patreon, and have we shared them as well with other like third edition versions of our books? Like are there variant sort of suggestions?
There are.
And
yeah.
okay, and how should the GM kind of see or contend with those?
Well, the number one place to find optional variant rules is the Deluxe Game Master's Guide. We have a whole chapter about sort of optional rules, additional things to consider, which includes a lot of the subheaders I talked about when I introduced the topic.
Yep.
There's also in the Deluxe Heroes Handbook, there's a couple of variant optional rules to cover things like damage, I believe. It might be in the Game Master's Guide, but I think it's in the Heroes Handbook as well.
Yep. There are also some variants and options in books like Power Profiles, looking at certain optional ways to do or build powers, or certain optional versions of power effects.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure some of our setting books have as well, like Hero High and Time Traveler's Codex, things like that, just to add the flavor for the kind of story you're telling.
Hey, sorry to butt in. We're having it looks like some technical issues. Facebook, I'm not sure if you can hear me or not, but I'm going to head on over there while we're talking about this subject. But it looks like there's some streaming issues, and we don't know why, and that they'll continue to keep on keeping on. So if you're on Facebook and you can hear us, give me a shout.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Devious Hearts points out that the corruption mechanic from Supernatural Handbook is a great example of a variant rule that's fairly genre specific.
Yeah, and very like maturity rating specific as well.
Yeah. Kaikan 300, pardon me if I'm butchering that name, friend, mentions, I like using a reputation system rather than just a catch-all complication.
Sure.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is
a very viable option.
Yeah, and that's totally something that happens in comics all the time. I mean, that's a superhero trope for a reason. Spider-Man has trouble with the paper. Batman has trouble with the police.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, look, Jonathan. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, and variant rules like that basically point out the sorts of things that you want to consider important in the context of your game. A reputation system basically suggests that it's something that the players are going to want to track in some way, and therefore it is going to bring a certain amount of player attention to that. They're going to focus on, well, this is going to lower my reputation score, or this is going to improve my reputation score, and it's going to affect decision making in the context of the game, as opposed to the complication system where trouble with the character's reputation is probably temporary, or is only going to come up when the player decides it does as a complication, and they're going to be rewarded for dealing with that by getting hero points. So there are two different ways of modeling the same thing, but they're going to affect the way the players approach them as far as that goes.
Nice.
Yeah, and I also think it's cool that gamifying it gives it a way to track it that is less arbitrary than the game or the player or the game master thinks it should come up.
Yep.
Got you.
And it gives you the opportunity to make sort of more significant rewards and penalties compared to a complication. With a hero point reward, you can come up with in-game bonuses to rolls, you can come up with contacts or resources they can get in touch with, or penalties or things that come up that make adventures harder to do based on that.
Right.
So when we're looking at the Jonathan Jackson says one variant rule I've been thinking a lot about is having Dragon Ball Z style transformations that temporarily increase your power. So what's interesting to me about that is that, and sorry, Jonathan, if I'm in my mind overcomplicating it, but does that feel like, is there ever a moment where you're like, hey, this might be a little too complicated for a variant, or maybe it's not?
I think it depends on how it's handled. The thing with a variant like that is it's similar to other things we've done, like talking about games where the characters have mecha, for example, and looking at groups like Mecha Force. The actual power level of the setting is the highest level that is going to happen in play, but gameplay isn't normally always at that level. So, for example, in the mecha campaign, the power level is actually the level of the mecha. The pilots operate at a lower power level when they're out of the mecha, and that's just part of the campaign. It may occasionally qualify as a complication in the, you're away from your mecha and you can't get access to them and you have to deal with this problem. Here's a hero point because you're going to need it.
Because you're going to get smashed by a giant robot.
And similarly in those sorts of games or settings where characters have these like tiers of power that they have to build up to in certain circumstances, you can pre-build that into the game. Essentially, you're building different versions of the character at different power levels and saying, this is my top tier character, this is the middle range, this is the lowest range, and however many variants there are in between. Obviously, the more of those you have, the more complicated it gets. And then you can basically sort of have situations that ramp up the character's power, so long as that's handled fairly equally across the player characters. That's just a campaign feature, and you don't even necessarily need a variant per se to do that. It's just a different way of handling character stats.
Yeah, it's sort of like a framing device for everything that's going on.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about the how does my character power up, that is another problem that sort of we try to address with support character options, because a lot of times support characters don't have as many options because most people build to their power level limits. So it's finding ways to splash in things like circumstance bonuses or a specific kind of, okay, I can be a little more powerful right now, but what is the price of that, or what is the triggering effect for that? You want to build clear ways for player characters to activate those additional power levels, but it's and like Steve said, you want to make sure it's fair for everyone.
Yeah, Pook brings up the things like untapped potential and holding back advantages, which are another way of modeling that's aimed a little bit more at the individual character who occasionally gets a power up but has some kind of disadvantage associated with it.
Yeah, and you can do cool stuff with like extraordinary effort. You can use extra effort twice in one round, but then you pay the 2 fatigue level penalties. So that's not necessarily the same as like going Super Saiyan for a few rounds, but that does give you one round where you really like go all
Get
out.
a boost. Yeah.
Hey, Rebel Moose, happy Mumamo unto you, and glad to see you. And so as far just to pull the thread of the mecha campaign a little bit, can we talk just a little bit about that? People are, surely interested in kind of knowing more.
That's another great example of not necessarily variant rules, but sort of a variant campaign situation where you sort of scale the story around the mechs instead of around the player characters, who are like, don't make your pilots power level 8 and make their mechs power level 20, because you're just going to be having numbers creep at that point. Really, all of the adventuring is done in the mech. So if the mech baseline is power level 10, that is power level 10 for mech.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you don't have mixed games where there are mixed regular superheroes and mixed mecha, it won't be a problem for you because you can just base all of the mech, all of the kaiju around that power level limit instead of just move things around artificially that way.
Yeah,
Makes
it's a pretty
perfect
effective way of
sense.
doing it. And that actually works for things like Sentai teams and the like too. Anything where the player characters are all going to have some kind of normal, non-powered form and a super identity of some kind.
Yeah, you don't want to get too
Fantabulous.
complicated because then you're really just adding extra work for yourself without really adding extra enjoyment for the players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
interesting. Hanover mentions for mechs in the Freedomverse, we recommend people build the sheet as the mech and that the player is a complication.
And make the pilot a complication, essentially. Yeah, that's the same thing for the sort of super powered sidekick effect. If you have the Johnny Thunder and his amazing Thunderbolt type of character, build the super powered one as the primary character, and even though they're technically the sidekick, treat the main non-powered character as sort of their relationship complication.
Interesting. That's really smart. I like that a lot.
Yeah, that's also a great way to handle things like Bruce Banner, where when he's not the Hulk, he's just a guy. He's just a dude.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what an interesting way to look at that and manage that. I really like that a lot.
Well, I mean, the Hulk will absolutely agree that Banner is a complication. I mean,
right? Yeah, absolutely.
being puny and all that.
They agree with each other
exactly
that they're
right.
both complications.
Also, Robot Jocks. Have we seen this? I've not seen it. I'm not sure if
I haven't seen that movie in a long time.
Yeah, who's in it? It's not what's his face, is it? Wolverine?
Hugh Jackman? No, that's Real Steel.
Well, that's Real Steel. Okay,
Yeah.
I remember that. I remember being unimpressed with that particular one. I'll have to look into Robot Jocks. Let's see. Oh, this is interesting and a good point, I think. Devious Start says, before you input new house rules, always see if pre-made and pre-tested mechanics already in the game. Don't duplicate what you already want to do. Yeah.
It helps to look around.
Yeah, and ask yourself what you're trying to accomplish with that rule. Like, what effect are you trying to make in game? And try to boil it down to the simplest implementation of what you're trying to do, because it could be that you're getting sort of fiddly with the rules, and there's really something much easier to explain what's happening that you can lean on.
Yeah, that's smart too. And I think also interrogating what you want to accomplish is a better way of understanding what the problem might be. If you're addressing a problem, if there's something,
and I think that's also a great way to handle some effects that are sort of complicated. Things like
principle.
summoning, things like summoning a shapeshift. Definitely, I like to sort of take a couple steps back and try to see what I want that summon to do. Like if I want it to protect me, I'll just make it deflect power instead of adding a whole other character to the combat. Or I want a bunch of skeletons to show up and beat somebody up, I'll just do an area attack instead of having characters for that.
Right. Awesome. And so are there different categories of variant rules then when we're kind of looking at the scheme of things? Like it feels like there might be.
There are, just in terms of how big of variance you're talking about. There are small variant rules that only affect a tiny corner of the game system, and there are large variant rules that really change how a lot of it works. I mean, for example, a large variant rule would be to eliminate skills. And say, instead of skills, you're going to get a particular advantage that says you're skilled in something that gives you a fixed bonus of some kind. That says so you're basically either skilled or unskilled, and that's it. Because I don't want to deal with all these different ranks of skills. I just want to know if a character is good at something or not good at something, and there would just be a fixed bonus if you're good at something, and that's it. That's a big variant because it changes a lot about how characters are built, how skilled characters work, and a bunch of things. I mean, it does simplify skills, and that if that's your goal, it's a step in that direction. But it's really looking at a lot of the effects that has on the game. I
think if you really want to divide variant rules up, you can divide into sort of mechanical variants and flavor variants. things that change massive aspects of how the game works, like if you want to have hit points instead of resistance checks,
Right.
or if you just want to have like a mass combat rule to make sure your players can lead an army in some kind of instance.
Yeah.
Or like the reputation is very much like a flavor character complication rule rather than overhauling the way the game works entirely.
And there definitely are variants or options that are definitely adding to the rules, something that they don't necessarily do. And there are variants that are changing the existing rules and changing what they do.
Yeah, and I think probably there's some of that categorization would apply, like I'm doing this because I'm fixing a problem or a hole that I see personally as a GM, or I want to add some flavor, or I'm doing a unique event that this requires, some flavor.
And you could just splash a variant rule in for a specific set, like a specific adventure or a specific scene, because it doesn't come up very often. Mass combat is really good for that, because unless your game you're running M&M as a war simulator, which you could. I mean, you definitely could do that. They're not going to be leading armies every adventure, probably.
Yeah, interesting. Apuk mentions that Valiant is essentially a big book of variants rules, for with the setting and NPC info. Sure,
it is.
Yeah, and that is the level you can get to for variant rules if you want to start looking very specifically at the genre and the tone you're trying to set for your game.
Now, Claude says, my favorite from the DGMG is hero point trade-offs. Do you know, what are... I was going to ask Claude to elaborate, but is that something that we kind of know what hero point trade-offs are?
I'm gonna
have to Google it.
Say that I'm not entirely certain what Claude is referencing.
Yeah, Claude,
this book was written before my time.
Immediately.
I need to refresh my memory. The ironic thing is that I wrote it.
You've written so many things, Steve. I can't imagine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is... it's not even so much of a variant as it is pointing out an opportunity. Basically, as the Game Master's Guide outlines, hero point trade-offs are simply those cases where you have no hero points, and you as the player say, "Hey, Game Master, if I have this complication happen to my character, can I have a hero point?"
Oh, that's a good. I like that.
And it's merely an opportunity to either highlight one of your existing complications and to say, hey, may I please have a hero point if this happens, or to come up with some interesting, complication in the game and basically say, as Claude points out, I will gladly give you a complication tomorrow in exchange for a hero point today.
That's great. We don't often talk about players sort of requesting a hero point or negotiating, but that's really, I think it's an important thing to bring up. Like,
it is.
Offering it as a devil's deal is one of my favorite things to do as a game master. Just to
it is
like,
indeed. I've
you
watched
want
it in action and I love it.
I'll give you a hero point if you want to take a bet, take a gamble.
That's right. I love it, and you do it. You present these opportunities in such a way that it is very clear that you are stepping in it.
You'll be fine.
For the
probably be fine.
Trauma's temporary, right? That's what my therapist keeps trying to get me to think.
That's right. That is right. That's what
glory is forever.
Right. Is this trauma or character development? They're the same picture.
That's great. Hero point debt as temporary complications. Yeah, I like that a lot. It happens a ton on the Freedomverse server. Claude mentions that's great.
Squire brings up the skills being redone in Valiant. That is another great flavor that you can bring into your campaign.
Yes.
If you want to break skills out, or you think they're too general or not specific enough, you can do the thing.
One particular example that we raise often is that there are certain genres in which a riding skill is important. In the Wild West, in a fantasy medieval setting, and the like. But it doesn't come up often enough in a modern day superhero setting for anyone to spend points on a riding skill. So we just made it an aspect of athletics. But in some settings, it may be significant enough that you want it broken out as a separate skill.
Yeah, now, and if your heroes travel to time period or a place where it is important, that can become a complication.
Hmm.
Or it can be, if they have something in their backstory, you can give them a temporary advantage. That means they have riding as a skill.
Hmm.
Right. Claude mentions only 2 skills: ride or die.
Yes.
Now, here's a couple. I've heard this brought up in the conversation in chat and external to this in other venues, but related to the idea that mass combat rules and they're in the Game Master's Guide. Let's talk about that a little bit. Simon mentions really liking that.
Yeah. Mass combat rules are really cool. Basically, instead of rolling 1,000 attack checks for 1,000 combatants, you break them down into a unit size, and you make that one actor in the combat that's going on. They have a force size, a force rank that is used to deal with measuring and ranks for effects and things like that. And basically, you can take a battle of 500 people and break it down into 5 combatants of 100 each, and have them make their set of actions as that blob instead of as everybody.
Yeah, we originally came up with the mass combat rules for the first Golden Age book because it was set during World War II, and you were going to have lots of battles happening, and so it was important to have some kind of system for handling it.
Absolutely. Hey, it is 1/2 the hour, and that means it's time for me to remind you, friend and listener, to make sure that you are liking, subscribing, that you're sharing, that you are engaging and discussing. You're reminding friends that you think should be hanging out with us, because all of those little bits and pieces help us defeat the algorithm, which is the real monster in our lives. And all you have to do is feed it. And you feed it with reactions and action, and by engaging and having fun, and that, I think, is because we don't really get into the rage clicking kind of stuff. We dabble in it every once in a while with a sort of like some kind of statement, or trying to make it look like we're really doing something controversial, but we're really just having fun. And so we're leaning into that. Make sure you're subscribing. Make sure that you're if you are hanging out on Facebook. Drop a like, drop a heart, or one of the other many positive emoji that that they've got over there. If they're stars, if they're hands, if there are hearts, whatever it is, we want all of them. And so, yeah, make sure you do that. And then, and the big thing too is just making sure to talk to a friend about this program, and say, hey, well, I heard on Mumamo that, and be that guy, or friend, or whomever. And just a reminder, make sure you're liking, make sure you're following, make sure you tickle that bell so you can be among the first to know when the stream is streaming. And like this stream very specifically. Absolutely.
Exactly.
I am wondering if Simon's been watching my stream. Simon mentions one example would be if you have a magically binding contract that compels you to fight a certain type of opponent. That is the character I play on Tuesday night. That's his problem. He's got to kill wizards when he finds them.
Yep.
What's going on? What is Tuesday night? What is that?
That is our arcade stream. It's a superheroes by way of Delta Green. We're a bunch of sort of mature rated dissidents who are fighting magic and monsters and things like that. I'm from another universe. I'm trying to find my way home.
Got you. You say mature rated, so it's more of a after dark experience.
Yeah, I mean it's fun. I have a good time with it, but don't bring your kids.
Yeah, don't bring your kids.
Or bring your kids and be ready to talk to them about it.
And be ready to be answering some questions. Let's see here. We got great comments. Simon. Yeah, that's right. You mentioned that. I like when players try to jury rig their existing skills. Yes, I feel called out on this, Rebel Moose. Well, horses are like flesh vehicles. Can I roll vehicles? Yeah.
The problem is that I would have asked for a vehicles check, but then they made that argument to me, and now I don't want to give it to them.
Right. Now I'm like, no. When you put it that way.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks. I hate it.
Yes, Jonathan Jackson. Arcade is sort of like SCP. They actually have this really cool, they're detailed in the Supernatural Handbook, but they have this really interesting mechanic where there's only a certain number of people on Earth who are allowed to remember that they exist.
Yeah, indeed.
Oh, how do they handle that?
Cool. It's a magic
Carefully.
spell that if
Okay.
you get out of the number, you just forget.
Yep. And it's you know, like first in, first out. So you have to be very careful how you manage it.
I love that. Yeah, let's see. Squire mentions, I remember a variant rule for takedown somewhere. Was that in one of the books or just mentioned on stream?
There is some discussion in the Game Master's Guide about possible ways to modify takedown, depending on how minions are handled in your campaign. There are some settings where takedown's ability to just mow through unlimited amounts of minions may be too powerful, and it suggests some possible limits on that, like making it ranked so you can only take that many attacks, or making it so that you can't make routine attacks against minions. So you actually have to roll the attack, and if you miss one, then you're done. You can't do any more takedowns.
You've broken the chain.
You've broken the chain. You know, and other things like that. And that just is another one of those examples of sort of fine tuning based on what really suits, you know, your campaign. If it doesn't make sense in the setting for a character to basically be able to potentially take down unlimited minions, you know,
Yeah.
put a limit on it.
If you're in a game like everything's street level and most of the opponents are going to come up against would be minions, you have the choice of sort of nullifying takedown a little bit in that regard, because most street level characters are going to have takedown for that specific reason.
Yeah.
If you're dealing with a mixed power level group where the street level heroes are meant to be mowing down minions while the heavy hitters do the heavy things, don't mess with it.
Right. Don't take
That
that
gives
away
them
from
something
them.
cool to do. Yeah.
But Apook points out that, you know, lieutenants are another example of just a variant rule that puts something in between minion and not, you know, as far as a sort of a mid-range thing.
Yeah, and you can get into things like minion groups is something I use in my games a lot of the time, where in terms of takedown purposes, you can attack each minion group once, but not if you run out of minion groups, you can't cycle back to another group of to the same group of minions again.
Right, right.
But then you still have all those people there to do.
You can sort
to
of
have that epic feeling.
Whittle away at the groups, but you're not going to just take them all out.
Yeah, minion groups is sort of like a small version of the mass combat system too, where you want to have that epic scale of we're going to beat up 100 guys in this warehouse, but you don't want to roll 100 dice every round for them to fight.
We are going to hold this bridge against, you know, this invading army.
So here's a question. When someone wants to introduce variant rules, there's probably a good way to do that, like a proven practice to kind of keep, you know, if you just surprise people with it, that could be a real bummer.
That is often not good advice for anything in gaming.
Horror life, honestly. Even
I understand the instinct to be dramatically like, haha, but check with people first.
Yeah. Talk to me about that a little bit. What's the
generally you want to have a discussion with your players. If you want to incorporate a variant rule, or they want to incorporate a variant rule, you should have a discussion about it. Say, this is what I think this rule is meant to address some of the things that we're having some issues with from our enjoyment of the game. Or if we add this variant rule, it'll add this flavor to the genre that we're trying to emulate. And being open to explaining how that rule would change, what it brings to the table, what opportunities it gives to the players, but also being willing to listen to them if they say, I'm actually not really interested in that, or can we do that but this, and be willing to sort of tweak it and modify it, because what you're trying to do is make the game fun for you and your group specifically.
Right. And that really is the key question to ask is this more fun?
Yeah.
Because if it's not more fun, why are you doing it?
Right. Yeah. Examine, and also, are you being sure that you are interrogating the reason you're doing the thing, so that if you ignore signs of not funness because it's such a passion of yours, you know, like you want to be clear-eyed about that for sure.
It is important to take people's play styles into account in that way. Fun is subjective, and there's no objective measure of a rule being more or less fun. It's more or less fun for your group. And some people who are very detail-oriented, like detail-oriented management systems and the like, and some people who aren't hate them with a passion. So you sometimes have to find what is the happy medium for your group.
And Claude does mention this. I mean, this is really, in all things, this is the one rule, which is use variant rules to punish your players.
Yeah. At the end of the day, that's
Right.
where the magic is.
If they step out of line, yeah.
Yeah, us versus them, always.
Right. Yeah. Right. Of course, sarcasm, enabled.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Kaikan mentions that technology is the most abused skill that they have seen, and
yes,
that is something we addressed in the Valiant rules
Mhm.
because that is such a technological setting.
Yep.
And I encourage you to try to implement some of that in your own games, even if you want to break it out
by all
further than the
means.
3 we broke it down into.
Nice. Well, you know what? If people are like, "Hey, yeah, I'd like to check that out and wrap my mind around the Valiant system."
How and where could they do that, Troy?
Well, it just so happens, friends, that if you are looking to get involved in that, we're running a little. What do you want to call this? A little preview program.
A little preview party.
Yeah, a little preview
private
party.
mixer.
A little private mixer, and just it's for a few select folks who select to get involved.
Very important players.
Very important players. All you got to do is look at the chat. Look at the chat. In the chat, there's a link to a form that you'll fill out, and then perhaps receive an invite to come. And we're actively doing that preview right now. Everyone's assembling, getting their groups together, getting their play groups together. Maybe you are somebody who, maybe you're a GM without a table, or maybe you are a table without a GM, or maybe maybe you're just missing one player. This is where you'll come and you will actually be able to gain access, if you don't already have it, to the Atomic Think Tank. That's our community space, and we're really utilizing this opportunity to help us see what we need to build and what we need to kind of adjust on the Atomic Think Tank side of things to be of good service to the community. So check the link, fill it out, and join us. It'll be fun.
Troy, I want to spend my hero point on. I remembered something I wanted to say earlier, but I should have said. Arcade is the Hex Files.
Oh, there you go.
Now, here's a question, Alex. Do you just keep a bag? Like, can you just use hero points as you see fit, or are you beholden to the? Because I mean, clearly you would have a lot. You've done a lot of amazing things.
Yeah.
Or can you just sort of munch on them as you go?
I try to give them out to charity when I can.
Oh, nice. That is nice.
Just I gotta feed them to pigeons in the park and things like that.
Oh, geez.
Those are some really buff pigeons.
Yes, right.
Yeah, you don't know what it's like until you've seen a pigeon use untapped potential.
Right.
Exactly. Boy, their comeback has got to be something.
Is that a power level 6 pigeon?
Poke. Squire says, what will the Valiant character sheet look like? Is it nearing the write-ups in the freeze sample?
That is up to the wonderful work of Hal Mangold and will depend on when he finally designs it.
Yeah. I think that is the design aesthetic that we're hoping for sure. And that's sort of what we're building with, but we don't know what the final's going to look like yet.
Yeah.
I do know that
the look of the quick start is definitely the direction Hal is going in for the Valiant trade dress and design, but obviously nothing is final yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was I going to say? Oh, I was going to say a real good way to figure that out, or to be in the know, is to be, in the know. Sign up on the form, and you will be among the few, the proud, the awesome, etc.
Gerald says that geese are just pigeons with untapped potential.
That is so good. Cool beans to you, Squire. Yes, sir. Sorry.
I don't remember what brought this up, but I realized the other day that pigeon, if you break it in half, is just pig eon, and I don't know what to do with that information, but it's yours now.
Right.
Oh. Okay.
It's the age of the swine.
That is the age of the swine. Oh, hey, breaking news. Gerald Scrimshire says Roll Hit Die is doing the Quick Start Adventure tonight.
Nice.
Awesome.
Nice.
Enjoy.
I don't know that, Gerald, do you want me to share the YouTube link to Roll Hit Die, or is there, I don't think you're set up to share links, unfortunately, but let me know in the chat, and I will do that I'm actually typing furiously in the background, which is why I sound like I'm confused, because I am. Because I want to grab the link to your YouTube channel. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, Sean, the angled margins were an intentional choice. We got that from Valiant's style guide.
Yep, they
It's
look
meant
like
to
a
emulate
V.
the V in Valiant.
There we go.
But the one sort of optional rule that we haven't talked about in the GM's guide, I think, is wealth. I think that's something we should chat about just briefly.
Sure.
Because I think it's a really interesting optional rule for if you want money to matter in your game. Oftentimes we don't worry about it because we don't, it's not really about accumulating things so much in Mutants Masterminds, but it is cool for characters who have wealth as an advantage to have something to do with it outside of just I buy that, I flex on them.
Right.
The way it works is you have a wealth rank, and that rank gives you a bonus to making purchase DCs. And you can increase that rank with points in the wealth advantage, or you can decrease it by suffering setbacks and complications and things like that.
And that's kind of a key point in terms of when you're coming up with a variant rule, is to also think about the different ways that the game system approaches basically problem solving. In the default system where wealth is a benefit, it essentially means that a certain rank of wealth simply lets you solve certain problems, in terms of any problem that, you can solve by throwing money at it. And that's largely up to the game master in terms of what's reasonable. If your character is a millionaire and they decide that they are just going to, outright pay for this and they have the means to do it, problem solved.
Oh yeah, Apuk talked about this earlier in the stream. I think it's good to mention that this is what he says. Though money and wealth aren't a focus in my games, I use a wealth system so that characters who invest in wealth benefit can flex it now and then to roll their wealth score. I like that.
Right, and there's the key difference, because I think that honestly, being able to just use your wealth benefit to solve problems automatically is a pretty good flex. The key difference in the wealth system is that it's a roll. That there's a border. And there's a lot of automatic success and routine checks. The same with anything in Mutants and Masterminds, but anything that's a check, basically there's a mid range where it's maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, and sometimes if it won't, there are going to be consequences. And so it's for things where you want there to be a possibility of both success and failure, and for there to be potential benefits or consequences based on that. And it's worth considering, whether your ideal solution to a situation is, well, this just makes it go away. It's no longer a problem. A great example being, some sort of universal translator advantage or system or variant that says, I don't want to deal with the language barrier in this game. It's set in the far future. There's lots of aliens. Everybody speaks a different language. And I don't want to deal with, does anybody here speak this language?
We've all got tadpoles in our heads that translate.
Right. I just want to say that there's something that fixes that and we don't have to worry about it. And problem solved.
Cheryl says, roll for credit score.
Yeah, but in some cases, that's literally what you're doing with the wealth system.
That's something else to think about. Don't traumatize your players by reminding them of the crushing reality of late-stage capitalism.
That's right. We're rolling for universal single-payer healthcare. Devious Heart says right now they have an article up in the Atomic Think Tank about House Rules number 1 environmental factors, using the world around you in M&M. It's about using items in your environment for a bonus.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds cool. I'll check that out after the stream. Zatrin does bring up that in all of their games, wealth has come up. So that might be an instance where the wealth rules would be fun and exciting for your players. That's but that's a dial for your game where Claude has players who never take it, so that his game doesn't need that dial. That's just something to think about.
And it's worth really checking in if something like wealth, it depends on what you mean by comes up all the time. If you mean is a problem often, then it might be a thing to talk to your players about and say, so what is the nature of our problem here?
Yeah, exactly.
Because sometimes it's just a matter of different expectations about the genre as far as that goes. The classic example is it's fun for folks on the internet to say, so why don't Iron Man and Batman just give up fighting crime and actually spend all of their vast fortunes on making the world better? Because then they wouldn't be superheroes.
But I want to dress up like a bat and beat people up.
That's right.
And as if you start getting to the point where you're questioning the basic concept of being a superhero, then you're going to have a challenge playing a superhero game.
An existential challenge,
but that could be a superhero type of genre that you want to lean into. That's sort of in the deconstructionist era, like if you're thinking like The Boys or Invincible. To some extent, you're looking
interrogating
at
the whole genre of
and if you're doing that sort of game, then clearly those guys have something wrong with them. And that's fine, and that's perfectly viable approach. But it's getting those expectations on the same page. And sometimes that's not so much something that the rules need to address, as it's just like, okay, we need to talk about what we're all expecting out of this.
And if everybody comes to the table playing a Batman, you're suddenly all Batmans. That's probably another thing to discuss as well.
And then you get the interesting option of, okay, if they're all some of the wealthiest people in the world, what kind of stories can I tell around that? That puts a big target on their back, either as publicly wealthy superheroes or as privately wealthy citizens.
Indeed, their secret identities may be more widely targeted than their costumed ones.
Absolutely.
Back when people thought that Iron Man was just Tony Stark's bodyguard, Tony Stark was in many ways the more famous figure.
Gerald Scrimshire mentions late stage capitalism as a PLX enemy. So there you go.
It's actually the Doom Coil. Surprise. Oops, Terminus.
I'm going into a spiral. Does anybody need anything?
But I just want to hit again on what Steve said earlier of whatever variant rules you're bringing in, make sure that they are inspired by adding a way for success and failure to be interesting. And really in M&M, you should only be rolling when success or failure is interesting because you're superheroes. If failure just makes things more frustrating without really adding a lot of drama, don't make them roll for it. Like, don't make your heroes roll to row the boat across the lake.
Right. Yes.
Not unless you want to run a comedy campaign, because that's what it'll turn into.
Either comedy
I guess
or tragedy.
The infomercial section of Idiot Box was really good for that.
Right. If you if you want to do a campaign like Mystery Men or the Specials, make people roll for everything, because the campaign will turn into slapstick in no time.
That's right. Where everybody sort of has a good time failing together, and that's great. This is a great one. This is really important. I think there's only one Vera Wang dress available for the gala in Ibiza. Which
now they would say Ibiza, Troy. You and I both know.
They would absolutely 100%.
Yes, you can definitely play a game of a soap opera game of rich people problems if you want to.
Right. Yes, exactly. Let's see. Essieterran Marine says, I've got a variant rule where players can roll a free persuade check to break mind-controlled Aegis agents and cops on their turn.
I like that a lot. I actually use something similar as a rule in my own games, where you can make an interaction check basically as a free action each combat round. So
nice.
Something like an interaction check, like if you want to do an assessment check, or if you want to try to do a demoralize or try to do a feint, you can do that and then follow up with an attack.
Did you two ever play Dungeon Keeper?
I'm familiar.
There was this
that's
one.
That's the drawbridge, right?
No, it's the one where they're in a dungeon and you're kind of birthing a series of villainous characters. Like there's a dominatrix and little imps to kind of dig things out. But they have a cleric that can turn the other side against itself. And so as they're kind of coming together, the good guys are coming, you can convert them into bad guys. Just reminded me of that, random.
Interesting.
Yeah, Keeping Up with the Kardashians, the superhero RPG. Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Hey, we take licensing deals if anybody knows them.
Yeah.
I'd make an RPG with Kim Kardashian.
Yeah,
It's fine. What a world. That would be the weirdest day I ever had at work.
Right.
Oh boy.
Right.
And that's when TTRPGs made it to the big time.
You hear that, D&D? We got the Kardashians.
That's right. We got the Kardashians. Take that, wizards.
And hero points. That's 2 wins for us.
That's 2 wins. Oh, God.
1.5 wins. I don't know if I'd call. Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, Hanover. I love Dungeon Keeper too. Gosh, I really, really miss. I'm gonna look at playing that, finding it somewhere. Hashtag fact, says Stan X. Love it. Okay, so listen, we only have 5 minutes left. We can't talk about the Kardashians. We've got work to do. Hey, Steve Kenson, talk to me about what's going on in general in the Steve Kenson cinematic universe.
Well, I am working my way through a lot of time travel, ironically enough, in my stuff for Worlds of Valiant. I am digging through a lot of the Time Walker series and working on all of the interconnected threads for a lot of the characters there, and looking forward to writing up dinosaur sidekicks and all of that other good stuff associated with it.
Nice. Who doesn't love a dinosaur sidekick? I know you do.
Right.
Everyone
Although she prefers the term companion.
Time Walker, Texas Ranger. Love it. Alex, what's happening in your world?
I am doing some of the finishing touches on Chrono Crisis this week.
See, more time travel.
So more time travel. Yeah, it's time travel all the time here. And like I mentioned, we have our Something in the Dark stream tomorrow night.
Over there on the Untold Stories?
Yeah, over there on twitch.tv/Untold Stories Project.
Beautiful.
And yeah, there's I submitted my games for Gen Con last weekend before submissions closed. I'm running 6 events, including Harley Quinn the musical. So
because you demanded it.
I cannot wait to see that.
I demanded it.
Devious mentions the book that shall not be named. Do we want to?
Devious, the book that shall not be named. All of the text is into me now, so yes. I'm in the process of doing the editing work in that now. So it is.
But a time-honored tradition means we add
complete.
Another 6 months. I think it was to the.
Yeah, I think it's that.
Yeah, 6 months. So you only have yourself to blame. The other thing I wanted to share, we've got so many things coming out of the Atomic Think Tank that it boggles the mind. It really does. We're going to be adding folks that are freebooters. We're going to be adding our age creators to the mix. We're going to also be anticipating great articles that Devious Hearts will write up, or other people as they sort of go, oh, I like the sound of this, and they add theirs as well. So keep an eyeball on that. There was something else I was going to mention. Squire says it needs to finish our Cthulhu streams. Those were fun. That was, of course, Cthulhu Awakens, run by our own Ian Lemke, which you'll find on our YouTube page. Let's see.
Stan, it is the first one. It is Something in the Dark, stream.
Something in the Dark stream. Yeah, that could be. Yeah. I guess that could.
I'm sure we will eventually find something in a dark stream, but I try not to put my face near natural fresh water just as a rule.
That's probably
just from growing up in Appalachia. I don't put my face near ponds or lakes or creeks.
I gotta tell you, Alex, neither do I, because it creeps me out. Swimming in fresh water, even salt water, it's too much. It freaks me out. I think something's gonna nibble my toes off. Let's see, 1 minute left, and of course, our friend Jabba the Hutt 50 says, a little late, was watching the earlier part of the stream. I heard mention of the Atomic Think Tank. I thought that website was gone. Is it back? It is, friend. It's back.
Form.
Yeah, it's back, and it's new and it's improved, but it's not totally public yet. So, yeah, you gotta know someone, or you gotta hang out, or you gotta send a note to let's play at greenronin.com and see if you can get yourself an invite. But lots of things happening. It's going to be fun. With that, I say, look, it's we're out of time. Chat.
Wait.
Thank you.
Devious
Please.
Hearts, you have nothing to be sorry about. It, we are getting that book out, but it's coming to you. Thank you for asking about it.
And that's all tongue in cheek, my
Kid,
friend. We
but
joke.
Nobody's as frustrated as me that it's not out yet.
That's right. Yeah. And so, don't sweat it. It's all teasing and jokes, of course. On this stream, when we tease you or say something, oftentimes we mean the opposite. So if you aren't sure, ask, and you will probably be right, or we'll deny it. Great stream today, gentlemen. Thank you very, very much, Steve. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, chat, for hanging out. Always a joy. Every Monday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, right here in this very same spot. Come and hang out with us Thursday for Thursdage. We'll be talking about all adventure game engine news and stuff. And that's will be a lot of fun, and you should join us there too. I think that's it. And then I'm going to figure out why we can't hear music ever. We'll get that figured out by Thursdage, potentially. But until then, have a great rest of your week, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care,
Bye, everyone.